2026. The assessment was conducted through a review of official data available to the department with various directorates within the department involved in the compilation of the data under the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, specifically Section 34. Any person holding position of authority in a government department who suspects or knows of corruption involving 100,000 or more is legally bound to report it to the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations, commonly referred to as the Hawks. This division of the South African Police Service is mandated with the investigation of high priority crimes, including organized crime, serious commercial fraud, and public corruption. The internal assessment is a preliminary review. Government departments are empowered by law to utilize internal units to vet officials, manage conflict of interest declarations, and evaluate early indicators of fraud. While internal assessments investigations focus on gathering evidence to institute immediate departmental disciplinary proceedings, they are separate from criminal liability. The department cannot independently or arbitrarily handle allegations and will thus adhere to a strict multi-agency transparent framework mandated by national legislation, which requires the referral of our findings to specialized law enforcement. The core objectives of the assessment span several key interlinked areas. The first is accountability and justice. Assessments and investigations transform allegations of bribery or fraud into concrete actionable evidence. This ensures that individuals or organizations engaging in unlawful practice face appropriate criminal prosecution or disciplinary action. The second objective of the assessment is the protection of the department. Corruption severely erodes public trust and compromises governance. Assessments and investigations identify vulnerabilities in organizational systems, allowing the department to implement stricter controls and prevent future exploitation. The third is asset recovery. Corrupt practices divert public funds into private hands. This assessment is the starting point of the process of investigation that is expected to facilitate the recovery of stolen assets and financial losses. The fourth objective of the assessment is the deterrence. Publicly exposing corrupt networks and enforcing penalties helps deter future offenders by demonstrating that illegal enrichment will not be tolerated. Findings of the internal assessment before outlining the findings of the internal assessment, it is important to define some key terms that we will be making reference to. Financial mismanagement refers to the careless, irregular, or unlawful handling of school funds. Corruption refers to the abuse of entrusted authority for personal or sectional gain. Fraud refers to deliberate deception for unlawful benefit. Maladministration refers to poor, negligent, or improper administration of public responsibilities. Procurement irregularity refers to the failure to follow lawful, fair, and transparent processes when appointing suppliers or purchasing goods and services. The report from the internal assessment records 41 serious matters involving principals, school governing body members, finance officers, bazaars, administrative staff, educators, general workers, and service providers. These are individuals and structures entrusted with public money, learner welfare, infrastructure, nutrition, teaching resources, and the daily functioning of schools. Of the 41 cases recorded, 22 occurred in 2023, accounting for 54% of the total. In 2025, 13 cases were recorded, accounting for 32%. By June 2026, 6 new cases had already emerged, accounting for 14%. This indicates that while the numbers of recorded cases are fluctuating, the problem remains active. Corruption has not disappeared. It remains embedded in parts of the system. This persistence tells us that this is not a temporary problem, but a structural one. The geographical spread of the recorded cases necessitates mention. The Johannesburg East District accounts for 24% of all recorded cases. The Ekurhuleni South District follows at 15%. Johannesburg Central District accounts for 10%. Tshwane South District accounts for 7%. Combined, these 4 districts account for over 56% of all recorded cases. This indicates that the problem is not random, but spread across multiple districts across the province. Empirical data from the Johannesburg East District, which services communities such as Alexandra, Ivory Park, Tembisa, and Rabi Ridge, reflects the scale of the problem. At one primary school, more than 1 million was allegedly misappropriated. At another primary school, approximately 230,000 was spent through irregular procurement processes. At an Elsen school, inflated payment exceeded market value by up to 500%. At a high school, more than 2.2 million was overspent across 2 financial years. These figures represent classrooms not repaired, books not bought, meals not served, and learners not supported. Identified areas of corruption, fraud, maladministration, financial mismanagement, and procurement irregularities. The methods that are employed in the unlawful conduct are similar. They involve inflated invoices, duplicate quotations, unauthorized withdrawal, cash payment without supporting records, procurement without process, and payments for goods that were never delivered. Venue booking revenue has also emerged as a high-risk area. Schools often rent out halls, sports grounds, classrooms, and open spaces for funerals, church meetings, and private functions. This generates income, yet there are repeated allegations that this money is often collected informally and not declared. A school cannot have parallel economies. Every rent entering a school must be captured in receipts, recorded, and audited. The department is also deeply concerned about corruption linked to scholar transport. Scholar transport is an access to education intervention. It ensures that learners, particularly those from distant communities, rural areas, and vulnerable settlements, can access schools on time and safely. There is prima facie evidence that some service providers misrepresent the quality, quantity, and conditions of vehicles used to transport learners. In some instances, service providers are contracted on the basis of a declared fleet size, but operate with fewer vehicles than approved. This creates a gap between what the state pays for and what learners actually receive. But the consequences extend beyond economic considerations, as this practice results in learners being overloaded into the few existing vehicles. Routes also become longer, resulting in late coming for learners, missing teaching and learning time. Furthermore, as drivers rush to shuttle as many learners as possible to compensate for fewer vehicles, incidents of speeding increase, as does fatigue on the part of the drivers. This heightens the likelihood of road accidents that may lead to injuries and fatalities. The department is also concerned about alleged theft involving physical school resources. Groceries meant for National School Nutrition Program, which benefits 1.6 million learners, are allegedly stolen, as is furniture, stationery, technical workshop equipment, and building materials. This theft and misappropriation are not victimless, as the consequences are immediate. A missing desk means a learner sits on the floor. A missing textbook means a learner falls behind. A missing meal means a learner is forced to study while hungry. The department is equally concerned by undeclared donations by schools. Many schools receive financial and non-financial support from churches, businesses, non-governmental organizations, political representatives, and communities. The resources include money, uniforms, furniture, food, building materials, and educational tools. The assessment indicates that there are instances where these donations are not declared and therefore not reflected in financial records, creating hidden financial streams. Hidden financial streams weaken accountability and creates opportunities for theft. A school cannot have parallel financial books or informal financial system. By law, every donation must be declared, recorded, and auditable. Broader socioeconomic implications, the findings of the internal assessment have significant implications for the education ecosystem in Gauteng. They also have direct consequences for fate of historically disadvantaged communities in particular. Consider that the Johannesburg East District, that has the highest number of reported cases, is home to many quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools. These schools are faced with a compounding crisis of severe overcrowding, aging infrastructure, and resource shortages. This systemic strain directly impacts the quality of education and learning conditions for thousands of learners. Many of the communities in which the cases of unlawful conduct are recorded are characterized by high unemployment, overcrowding, poverty, and social pressure. In these communities, schools are more than just educational institutions. They are social anchors. They provide meals, psychosocial support, protection, and stability. When corruption, maladministration, fraud, procurement, irregularities, and theft strike in the schools within these communities, the damage is long-term and catastrophic. Furthermore, it undermines the objectives of the democratic government to redress injustices of the past, whose vestiges can still be gleaned in the post-apartheid dispensation. As consistently argued by renowned educationist Professor Mary Metcalfe, schools are central to community transformation and democratic development. This principle holds when schools are weakened, communities are weakened, when schools are looted, social progress is delayed, interventions undertaken by the department to date. Between 2024 and 2026, the Gauteng Department of Education has utilized available legislative instruments to deal with some of the challenges outlined in this statement. Various pieces of legislation empowers the department to intervene in public schools where acts of unlawfulness are identified and confirmed. These include the South African Schools Act 84 of 1996, as amended, the National Education Policy Act 27 of 1996, as amended, the Gauteng Schools Education Act 6 of 1995, as amended, the Governing Body Regulations for Public Schools, Government Notice 786 of 1997, as amended, and the Code of Conduct for Members of Governing Bodies of Public Schools, Government Notice 1182 of 2004. According to the provisions, the head of department may, on reasonable grounds, withdraw functions from a governing body. In cases of agency, the head of department may act in terms of sub-regulation 1 without prior communication to such governing body if the head of department thereafter furnishes the governing body with reasons for his or her actions, gives the governing body 30 days to make representations relating to such actions, and duly consider any such representations received. Additionally, a member whose conduct in relation to the governing body is prejudicial to the best interest of the school may be removed from office by the head of department. In cases of agency, the head of department may act in terms of sub-regulation 1 without prior communication to such governing body and the member consent. If the head of department thereafter furnishes the governing body and the member consent with reasons for his or her actions, gives the governing body and the member consent a reasonable opportunity to make representations relating to such actions, and duly considers any representations within 7 working days from receipt of such representations. In 2024, a total of 12 public ordinary schools had their functions withdrawn while 16 schools had SGBs where members were removed. In 2025, a total of 7 public ordinary schools had their functions withdrawn and 9 schools had SGBs where members were removed. As of the 28th of June, 2026, a total of 7 schools have thus far had their functions withdrawn, while 12 schools have had SGB members removed. The geographical spread of the school affected is even. All 15 districts are affected, and the districts are named there, so I will not go through the names of the districts. While reasons for the interventions by the departments are varied across all schools and SGBs, while reasons for the interventions by the department are varied across all schools and SGBs, but overarching themes include failure to adhere to procurement processes, which led to some members awarding contracts to themselves, making decisions without the approval of SGB, causing the school to overspend based on fruitless expenditure, failure to follow the prescribed procedures when appointing the school's service providers, payment of service provider without supporting documents, SGB chairperson being involved in receiving bribes, non-attendance to meetings, nepotism that was expressed in the appointment of family members as SGB educators and administrators, as well as appointing companies owned by families of the SGB members to service schools. Other reasons include financial mismanagement, failure to conduct a handover, soliciting of a bribe from the acting principal in return for appointment to the principal's post, irregular payment of transport allowance claims, opening an investment account without approval from the MEC, instructing delivery of nutrition programs, food to a home address, selling admission space, violating the SGB code of conduct, making sexist remarks towards women, ineligibility to serve on the SGB, which requires that a member has a child registered at the school, and irreparable conflict within the SGB. The department takes these matters very seriously as they erode on the capacity of schools to function optimally, directly impacting the quality of teaching and learning. Financial mismanagement and related financial irregularities also impact greatly on learners as they are deprived of the necessary equipment, infrastructure, and other goods and services required to ensure school functionality and performance. In all cases where the department intervened with the removal of functions or SGB members, the applicable laws were adhered to and due process was ensured. In line with the Constitution of South Africa, Act 108 of 1996 and the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act 3 of 2000 as amended. The Gauteng Department of Education will be instituting immediate interventions to deal with the findings of the internal assessments that we have concluded. In the process of this assessment, we have become aware of more systemic issues within the education sector. These demand attention from the department and law enforcement agencies. As a starting point, we have launched an internal investigation into the allegations of education sector officials who may be doing business with the state through proxies, family members, or undeclared company interests. Public office must never be used as a private business opportunity. Section 8 of the Public Administration Management Act explicitly makes it a criminal offense for government employees and special advisors to conduct business with the state or serve as a director of a company doing so. Regulation 13C of the Public Service Regulations also bars employees from conducting business with any organ of state except in strictly approved official capacities. Under the Department of Public Service and Administration Directive on conducting business with an organ of state, employees are explicitly prohibited from registering themselves or their companies on the National Treasury Central Supplier Database. Secondly, the department is strengthening its internal financial control to improve oversight and ensure that school resources are used only for educational purposes. People who deal with school finances, including principals and members of SGBs, must be vetted. This will include the conducting of criminal record checks, financial background checks, conflict of interest declarations, qualification verification, and competency assessments. The handling of school finances cannot be a casual or weekly supervised. Large budgets, often running into millions of rands, are managed in environments where financial controls are sometimes inadequate, oversight is inconsistent, and accountability mechanisms are vulnerable to manipulation. Thirdly, scholar transport inspections, route verification, vehicle audit, and compliance checks will be intensified. Any service provider found to have misrepresented vehicle numbers, overloaded learners, operated unroadworthy vehicles, or manipulated scholar transport contracts will face immediate investigation, contract termination, and referral to the law enforcement for investigation and prosecution. Finally, and most significantly, the department will intensify cooperation with the South African Police Service, the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations, the Gauteng Provincial Treasury, as well as the Departmental Labor Relations and Risk and Compliance Units. As stated, government departments must investigate corruption by following strict multi-agency transparent framework mandated by national legislation. We will collaborate with and refer cases to external anti-corruption bodies that are legislatively mandated to investigate and prosecute corruption, fraud, and unlawful activities. The Gauteng Department of Education is committed to rooting out corruption within the provincial education ecosystem. Corruption is not simply a financial problem. It is also an ethical failure that reflects moral degeneration and decline in societal values. Schools are a microcosm of society. They reflect the values, contradictions, and moral condition of the communities around them. If a society normalizes lawlessness, it will be reflected in schools. If society tolerates corruption, schools will absorb it. It is for this reason that we will continue to strengthen our recently launched initiatives under the theme, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, a practical program of social accountability. Communities and other stakeholders who are participating in the program are not unaware of the unlawfulness occurring in our schools and should be part of the solution to addressing it. Education is a public good, and parents, teachers, learners, churches, civic organizations, unions, business, law enforcement, and government must unite to protect it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MC, for this very conclusive statement, comprehensive. We will now take a round of hands. The MEC and the panel are going to respond to you. So you are going to give us your name and the media house you come from. I now take hands. Yes, we have also checked questions in our chat and online. There isn't thus far. Mrs. Felicia, Lighthouse.
Good morning, MEC. I have a few questions, but I'm going to start with two so that I will give other people a chance. My name is Felicia from Lighthouse Podcast, the podcast that is representing Elsen schools. I would like to know who is holding the HOD accountable since he is entrusted with so much responsibility that is harmful, that has harmful consequences to the person that is being removed from the SGB. And the number two question is, I do not hear you, Mr. MEC, mentioning about the protection of people who are reporting the corruption to whoever, to Hawks or to your office. So I would like to know if you have any plan in future or in place to make sure that those who are reporting corruption to you, to your office, to HOD, they don't get harassed.
Thank you. Let's check it. Yes, Maria?
Thank you. Neria Hlakotsa from the SABC. MEC, you spoke about 41 serious matters involving principals. What are these 41? Is it corruption, financial mismanagement? Please just break down that part. And with the regards of the whistleblowers, who gave the department tip-offs in this regard? Was it like fellow teachers? Was it maybe the parents of the school, or who actually gave this tip-off about these mismanagement of funds and the corruption? And also the issue of vetting. You spoke about how the department is intensifying that. How far is the process? Are we seeing the process being intensified now? Because at some point, I remember the issue of vetting in the department was a challenge where most of the employees were still not vetted. How is the process going now in terms of percentages, if possible? And also, just lastly, with these cases, how many have been reported perhaps to law enforcement or even the Hawks themselves? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maria. There's no other hand. MEC on the panel.
Yeah. Maybe the first question, what are the in the laws, Felicia, of the Republic, there's what we call checks and balances. So the HOD is an accounting officer, there's an MC who's an executive authority, who's where the HOD reports, and you've got the legislature, which is also having an oversight. So there's checks and balances. There's no one who's got unfettered power. And that's why if the law is even clear that under what circumstances can an HOD take a decision to exercise his responsibilities. And it also explains the process that must be followed, and the fact that must also give reasons, but also SGBs or a member affected can appeal to the MEC or whoever. So there's that checks and balances. And then, yeah, you will know that the police have got what they call the witness protection in the event witnesses are. So that's the function of the police. But we, to the best of our abilities, make sure that we don't disclose our sources, especially people who are reporting corruption. But if sometimes they are known and they could be harmed, that's when we would have to work with the police, because it will require them to enforce the law. On the cases in area, they vary. and in the statement, we do state that they involve sometimes the inflated invoices, duplicate quotations, unauthorized withdrawals, cash payments without supporting records, procurement without process and payments for goods that were never, so they vary. And then we also spoke about our concern around scholar transport, amongst others, our school nutrition program, where there's also problems there. One of the things that we are doing in terms of vetting, we don't vet ourselves. You will know that we use approved state organs, like the state security. So, because in Gauteng we chose not to give this work to private companies. In other provinces they do that. We rather have approved state organs doing it, and I don't know in terms of the exact number of people, HOD, if you've got that. Yeah, do you have this exact number?
We had a bit of a slow period, so we've accelerated. We have started, we had initially been doing vetting, and then the SEPs introduced a fee for each person that you're vetting. It was no longer a free service. We didn't have a budget towards the end of last year. As of the 1st of April, we've made 10 million rand available to accelerate the vetting. And that is now ongoing. The key aspect, I think we're accelerating. We can make the figure available. I don't have it offhand. But I think also what should be known is that during every audit, there is a review of all officials against the central supplier database. And it's also tested in every province where the officials from Gauteng are doing business with the state. And every year we get a report of all the individuals whose ID numbers or family members are doing business with organs of the state. We then have to investigate each of those cases, and we then have to report to the Auditor General on whether there was any contraventions or not. Very often we do find that the individual has divorced from the employee, and therefore it has not been regularized in terms of the court. But we've dealt with all of those particular aspects.
Thank you very much. Neria? It's a follow-up question.
Any cases reported yet? And perhaps of all the cases, how many have been reported? And any arrests so far?
Felicia?
Not yet, but we don't have. One of the things which I've asked the colleagues is that when someone implicated in theft or corruption in a school, after undergoing disciplinary processes and all that, we have to open a case, especially where there is theft, and so that we can try and recover the monies, and that's why we are doing this extraordinary effort of briefing the public on these matters, because we want to be held accountable, and we also want to take action and also alert the public that we are doing something about it, and they must be vigilant and report And we keep on receiving reports even from, and I think there was a question of who gives us the tips. It's actually various stakeholders. Sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's educators, sometimes it's even learners and service providers in the different schools.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. I would also like to know, I don't know if MEC mentioned about school regulations not being adhered to by SGB or the principal. So is it part of corruption if the SGB doesn't adhere to the SASSA regulation? I'm going to make an example. Let's say, as we are representing Elson schools, we know that there is a regulation that protects a child who's earning disability grant. I would like to know that, is it something that you call corruption whereby a principal or SGB is demanding a school fees from a child who is earning disability? Oh, I'm sorry, MEC, I'm so sorry. A disability grant. Okay, number 2, MEC, public funds. How do you, on what basis do you approve that the SGB or the school save public funds or invest the public funds? And if you approve it, how do you monitor then the interest and everything that comes from that investment? Last one, MEC, I would like you or your office to protect me with that protection that you mentioned from your office, because I'm one of those people who need your protection. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Felicia. In the virtual platform, we've got a question from SLU. They are asking, are we likely to see any arrests related to corruption cases since there is prima facie evidence? There's no other question on the floor. MEC and the panel, please respond.
Yeah, definitely we will open cases, and those people who are implicated will have to be arrested. There's no doubt about it. We will immediately instruct our district directors and relevant officials to open the cases. The issue of protection, I said the police, if there's the Department of Education does not enforce the law. The law is enforced by the police. So the police, I think you'll have to report the matter. The MEC's office, as I've said, what we do, we don't disclose the names of people. If you report to me corruption, as part of protecting you, I will not say who, but sometimes people who report are known. Like in your case, it means you have to report the matter to the police, and the police will have to deal with the matter. There's laws that govern finances, and those laws must be adhered to. And if they're not adhered to, we must take action. That's why even the issue of investment, the school will apply and explain and present their case, and the issue will be dealt on a case-by-case basis by the MEC. Remember, the MEC, in terms of the law, has to be rational, because the MEC is assumed to be a competent person. So that's why when the matter is presented, the MEC must apply themselves based on what is the best interest of the is a school or the public on the issues of investment. In the statement, we also define different terms, which I did start, what is corruption and all that. But what is more important for us is that people must not do wrong things. Wrong is wrong. So whenever there's a wrong thing, there will be action, whether it's a corrupt matter or a moral matter or a matter of ethics. We have to ensure that we uphold the highest standards in the public service. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So if there's no follow-up questions, I see there's none in our virtual platform. I would like to appreciate you again for your attendance. And I adjourn the press conference. We will be available to take interviews after this. Thank you.